Well, thought that might be either Saith or Alexandra. Well, Jessica, I gotta add them tax today. I brought 3 returns. I got 4, and you got 3. We got enough for everybody, 2 almost.
Well, they were wanting me to do theirs.
Yeah,
So,
well, I understand that.
yeah.
It'll be okay. All right, well, we'll have a test next Tuesday in cost. We'll have the test on chapter 2 and 3. Thursday, we still may go on to chapter 4, which is job order cost accounting. So we need to finish up chapter 3 today. And Thursday, I'll tell you pretty much what is on the test. But you will have a manufacturer statement. You will have journal entries. You will have predetermined overhead rates and how to dispose of any underapplied, overapplied, and that gets you through chapter 2 and 3. If you can do all that. Now, we had a couple of problems to wrap up. I've got some much marked in my book from a couple semesters ago. What numbers were those, William, you or just want to have them down?
It was 24, 29, and 32, I think. Yeah.
All right, William, do you concur with those numbers? 24, what?
24, 29, and 32.
44 back to 29?
No, 24,
24.
29, and 32.
All right, I kept saying you said 44. Anyway, let's look at those. There are probably some other good ones that we haven't looked at. '24 was simply the high-low method. I wanted you to practice that once again. And Jessica, I know you did that one. Did you bring your homework with you?
No, it's in my book.
Oh, William, what did you have for the fixed cost and the variable cost on the high-low method?
I don't have it with me.
All right.
That looks about what I thought, I think.
The high activity 1900, the low activity 1250, the high cost, the low cost. The difference is 260. So 260 divided by 650 gave us what, 40 cents? That look right to you?
Yeah.
So we could take the cost formula any place. You don't have to use the Y. Jessica, multiply 1900 times 40 cents. And William, multiply 1250 times 40 cents.
760.
How much?
760.
Now subtract that from 1160.
400.
That'll be your fixed cost. William, multiplying 40 cents times 1250.
500.
Subtract it from 900 will be 400 fixed cost. So you can show me the variable cost and the fixed cost pretty easy if you get that amount. 40 cents is your variable cost per unit. So that's an easy method. I don't know why they ever even threw in the method of least squares in the appendix. Get you the same answer. Okay? And I believe in going easier, math or anything else. William, did you watch the Super Bowl Sunday? I don't know what they say about the stock market. If the American League wins, will the stock market go up or whatever? It used to be old cliche about it. And you watched the halftime show? Jessica, did you see the halftime show? But you didn't watch the game.
I watched the game.
What'd y'all think of the halftime show?
I liked it.
A lot of skin. Men liked it.
Like, look, I see two two almost 50-year-old women looking better than me, so I can appreciate that.
140 and 150, and they did look good. And they're both Latinos, and they did their Latino song.
People are so mad about that. They were like, "This is America. You need to speak English."
They did some Latino songs, and I guess brought out a Puerto Rico flag.
Yeah.
Well, Puerto Rico, maybe someday the 51st state.
But it also had the American flag on it too. It
Yeah,
had both flags.
But anyway, they're both Latinos, and that's the kind of show they put on. And it was okay. I enjoyed it. William, did you like the score of the football game?
No,
I did.
You didn't?
no.
What?
I didn't care who won, but the Chiefs really should not have got that touchdown.
They did.
But they shouldn't have.
Well, they scored a final touchdown to seal the score,
That one was just
and so people
dumb.
wouldn't gripe about that one score. But that was close, wasn't it? But with 6 inches to go, they still scored. That's the ref call. They had TV there to test it with.
I don't even watch football, and I know that was a bad
Kansas
call.
City hadn't had it Super Bowl in 50 years. And, of course, the Titans put out the best American League team. That's Baltimore. And they put out the normal contender, New England. The Titans put them out. And then Kansas City beat the Titans. I'd like to see the Titans there, but they weren't. And I was for Kansas City because California is so rotten. I hate to see them get anything. I wish they would leave the United States.
Look, pretty soon Florida and California is going to be underwater, so.
You know, I've got relatives living in California, but a lot of your fads starts in California. It's so liberal. And if they ever go to the popular vote, you have 3 or 4 big states like New York and California and Florida, they could pick the president by the popular vote. And these states, like Iowa, that's having the caucuses right now, they've only got about 3 million people, total population. Well, New York City has about 12 million, 13 million people. So, but anyhow, it is what it is, and it'll be what it'll be. So, Super Bowl was over Sunday. Iowa caucus was over last night, but it's not settled. The impeachment trial will be over today. State of the Union mess will be over tonight. The acquittal will be final tomorrow, and we can move on to something else. Your state senator, Joe Mancini, I guess.
Manchin.
What?
Manchin.
Okay, I always mispronounce his name. He will probably vote with the Republicans to acquit. I'm surprised he hasn't changed his politics because of the West Virginia governor and the West Virginia vote. West Virginia will stay a red state for a long time. My state flip-flops. Okay, the next problem, we looked at 24 safe, and we're now on 29. And 29 is production cost absorption variable. Okay, now here's your 2 little statements on 29. You will have those on the test. I don't think you'll have any trouble. Some of you may have trouble when it comes to this one. You did not have to do the statements, so I guess I better read the problem. What was the annual production cost per unit under variable costing? and then under absorption cost. Now, if we look at what is this 228 labor? Is that out? What is that? Is that materials?
Materials.
Materials, labor, and overhead being 530 divided by units. The variable cost per unit is $5.10. So if you multiply the 510 times the number of units, of course you get 530, 400,000. But if you take the fixed overhead to your variable cost, you've got total cost of 629. So that's 605 absorption cost per unit. So your key, see, I don't know if this one will let me write or not. No, it's not going to let me write. Some will, some won't. But anyway, your final answers here is your variable cost per unit is 510. The absorption cost per unit is 605. Now, what's the difference? What is the 95 cents difference?
Your fixed overhead.
The what?
Adding in your fixed overhead.
You add it in right here. All right. If you divide 98.8, no, that might work. Divide that by 104,000 units. How much?
95 cents.
It should give you the difference then. 510 and 605 is 95. Because that's the only thing we did different. And it will give you the 95 cents also. Anyway, B, variable cost of goods sold, 100,000 units times 510. Absorption cost of goods sold, 100,000 units times 605. Which method would be better here for taxes? B or C? All right, let's say your sales was $1 million. How much would you pay taxes on here? Let's say gross profit, you had no other expenses. What would your gross profit be here? $1 million minus 510 would be what? $490. You pay tax on $490. Here, you pay taxes on how much? $395. Now, Jessica, what would be the best answer?
C.
C. For tax purposes, absorption costing. D, ending inventory under variable costing, 4,000 times the 510, and ending inventory under absorption, 4,000 times the 605. All right, fixed overhead changed to expenses, 98,000. Fixed overhead charged to expense absorption would be 95,000. 98, 95. Now, where did 98 come from?
That's the fixed overhead.
Right here, 98.8.
Yeah.
They left off a zero way over here, but it's 98.8. Here's your zero. And it's the same thing. How do you get to 95? We calculated that, didn't we? By the difference in the units. All right. The next problem you had was 32. Now 32 is variable and absorption cost again. The factory overhead was based on units of production. Okay, what is the budget amount of fixed factory overhead? This is just looking at it in a different light. But most likely on a test, you'll be writing down the statements. All right, is this given? budgeted fixed overhead, 40 cents times 100 is 40 cents and 100
I
given.
think so.
Huh?
I think so.
Alright, you don't have a book, do you? William, how's your book coming along?
It's arriving tomorrow.
Did you track it down?
Yeah,
It will finally arrive tomorrow.
I don't know why it took a month.
You know, any of these companies sell books, students should be priorities. They need their books. They should be priority, huh?
I said, but they don't care.
No, they don't. Amazon just wants to sell everything in the country. Did you get yours from Amazon? So Amazon has put Kmart out of business. And almost Sears. They're probably hurting things in pennies, which is going down. Rose is still hanging on out the mall, isn't it?
Yeah.
Down my way, Magic Marts, 3 or 4 Magic Marts went out of business. But Amazon is hurt. Okay. All right. Actual and budgeted fixed overhead is 40,000. Applied fixed overhead is 45,000. That would be your actual units times 40 cents. What is the 45,000 units? Is that direct labor hours or something?
That's production for the year.
That's units. So your applied fixed overhead, that is units. Well, you know, we got to 40 cents already calculated, right? But the budgeted fixed overhead, they had to give you the 40 cents.
Yes, they did.
Okay. There is no under or over applied overhead under variable costing because fixed overhead is not applied to units of production. So there is no over or under applied under variable. But here we have your direct materials and labor and overhead. Cost per unit variable is $5.20. Now, when we put that 40 cents in that we've been playing around with, our cost per unit is $5.60. Which one of these do you think is more true, more accurate? Wait.
60.
What?
560. What she said.
Which one?
560.
Because you do have fixed costs, don't you? So I think this would be more true. 5.6. That's what I'd probably use.
And honestly, to
The what?
figure out cost of things, I would probably always go with the higher number just in case
Yeah,
of not low
I'd definitely go with absorption cost. All right, absorption cost of goods sold is 273. Your over under applied is 22. You'd have to add that back, makes 295. Adjusted cost of goods sold. Sale administrative, variable, and fixed, and total absorption expenses, 464.5. Your variable cost of goods sold being 253, and your variable sale administrative, so your total variable would be 463. Not a lot of difference though, is there? In this situation, only 1,500. Income is higher under variable costing because the sales level is greater than the production level. Income will be higher by the fixed overhead of 40 cents times a change in inventory of 3,750 units. If you multiply 40 times 3,750, you'll get $1,500, which is the difference between the two methods. You can calculate the difference in having your fixed overhead tied up in inventory. All right, now folks, that's being exercises and problems. Now, I'm going to give you two problems again to hand in Thursday. Now, hand these in Thursday. I'm going to give you two problems only. And I want you to read chapter 4, of course, which we're going to start today. Uh, all right, number 40, I suppose. Calculate some overhead rates. Number 43, practice the high-low again. Number 48, practice verbal absorption again. And that's it.
So 43 and 48.
Yeah,
43 and 48,
Oh, did you say 40?
48,
Okay.
40, 43, 48.
43, and what else?
48.
Start from the top, Jessica. Which one did I say first?
40,
right?
40,
43,
43,
and 48.
48. Okay.
I just didn't hear you say.
Yeah, you're practicing everything but a journal entries and a manufacturer statement, which was chapter 2. And we're going to skip chapter 4 and get back to it if we can. It's called activity based. Now, activity may be the number of operations in the operating room. Chapter 5 is good for health management students. But we'll skip it for the time being. So we're moving on to chapter 5. We're going to do job order and process before we get to activity based. Now, Miss Rogan, did y'all hear about her? It was one of my classes Thursday that two policemen came up looking for her.
Yeah.
All right, and I guess they found her, but her husband had an accident. You heard about that? He had a stroke a long time ago. He was a retired teacher, but he substituted. And I think Karen still had to do about everything for him. So he got called in. I was just talking to her. How much was he substitute? She said hardly ever. But anyway, after he had his stroke, he only focuses on certain things. Now, if he gets called in to substitute teaching, he focuses on it. So he was out driving to go substitute teaching. I don't know if he had a smud spot, wet spot, or just couldn't drive, but it spun around and hit a tree, and then it spun around and hit something on the other side, and it landed in a field, and they had to cut off both doors to get him out. And he's in Roanoke Hospital now. He broke 2 ribs, cut the back of his head, broke his pelvis bone, and hurt his back. And he's still incoherent. And after they do what they can for his ribs and his pelvic, there's probably not much they can do about your pelvic bone. They sure can't put it in a cast, can they? They'll send him to rehab. So I feel sorry for her. She already had her hands full. She was helping with her grandkids and him. And she just told me that the only thing he did, sit at home all day, he might take out the trash once or twice a week. That's all he did. She had everything else to do. So that's something else for her. But you can do it. No matter how much you get put on you, you can do it. When my wife had cancer for 13 years, I probably told y'all before, I missed very little work. But it was close. I could run home during my office hours. She was in the hospital. I could run down to the hospital. I could stay with her and run home and get ready the next morning. Uh, it's all about attitude. Jessica, you normally seem to have a positive attitude, don't you?
Customer service, Jessica, yes.
The what?
I said customer service, Jessica, yes.
In customer service, you have to have a positive attitude, don't you?
Yeah.
Uh, anytime you're dealing with the public, you should keep a positive attitude. Uh, what do you have, Seth? Positive or negative attitude?
It really depends on the day, obviously.
Time today, how about you, William?
I'll stick with me.
I think mine's positive too. I always see the glass half full, and those people who see the glass half empty. Say if you're in one of your negative attitudes and the glass is half empty, go pour it in a smaller glass. And it
If the glass is full and it's poured out to halfway, then it is half empty.
Yeah.
You just lost like half the water.
Oh, okay.
But if it was empty and you get like
Water
more
poured
water
in
poured
it,
in, then it's
It's
half
half
full.
full.
It depends on its preference.
See, there's another way of looking at it. Okay, job order, folks. Job order and process are the two. Job order is small quantities or batches, tailor-made. All right. Now, job orders, still, there's a lot of money involved. Now, homogeneous products, what are you drinking, a Coke?
No, Monster.
That's probably a homogeneous product. That stapler, and your calculators, and pens, homogeneous products. A lot produced, a lot like. But anyhow, job order. Construction is job order. When they order this dorm built down here, that'll be job order. The plans will be for that job, and that will be for Bluefield State. When they're doing a piece of construction on the highway, that's job order. If you see a house being built, that's job order. Anytime you have something custom made, we used to have our business cards printed at a print press. But now, if you do that now, you're pretty dumb about computers, aren't you? You can print out your own business cards. Anyhow, job order. Anything tailor-made. There's not too many tailor-made clothes anymore. But if you had a tailor-made suit or a tailor-made dress, a wedding dress, you know, even if you go to Food City and you order a tailor-made wedding cake, getting that job order, that wedding cake. All right. A job can be a client or customer. Now, auditing can be a job. Auditing engagement can be a project, like digging a ditch or building a house. It could be a product or a contract. Now, methods of product costing, cost accumulated system defines the cost object, and then valuation methods. Actual normal standards. These don't let the terminology fool you when we look at problems. It won't fool you. But actual is your actual, and your normal is actual, and predetermined, which we've done both of these, okay? We've done the actual, we've done the normal. Standard, we'll look at standard in a later chapter. Each job is a cost object. If you're building a house, that's the cost object. If you're building a road, if you're making a wedding dress, that's the cost object. A job can consist of one or more units of output. There is a subsidiary ledger for each job. So you may have jobs 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You may have work in process for each job. You may have finished goods for each job. But regardless if it's job order or if it's process, your materials and labor and overhead flows into it the same way. I did. Somebody tell me what you mean by intranet, INTRANET. Restricted network for sharing information, delivering data from corporate databases to local area networks, like here at Bluefield State, at Beckley, if we got off-campus site, they can receive information from Bluefield State's database. It's that simple. And that's intranet, confined to a group for that company. Materials, labor, and overhead again. Now, a job order cost sheet, you should have a place for materials, a place for labor, and a place for overhead. So when you add up materials, labor, and overhead, you've got the total cost. Or you may do this and on an estimate. You've got to give an estimate. Now, while you may have to apply overhead sometimes, you want to give an estimate to a potential buyer. Now, on this cost accounting job order sheet, we have materials and labor and overhead. Here we had fabrication, and over here's installation, and over here's finishing. So we've got total cost from all three departments, 28.2. Now, if we're bidding on this for somebody, what are we making? Job. What is this? Steel what? 2,000 feet of what?
Steel fence. That's what it looks like.
2,000 feet of 6 feet steel. I can't read that.
Fence.
All right. But anyway, that's the job. Okay. Now, I can give a buyer the bid. I'll make this for you for 40,000. And if he takes the bid, then I can make a profit by making it, can't I? Materials requisition form, that's when you debit work in process and credit materials. Timesheets. And you can see we're making a journal entry. We'll worry about those in a minute. Timesheets. Jessica, do you have a punch card? What do you have at work?
We have a face recognition.
A what?
A face recognition time clock.
Face? You have to put your head up in front of a screen or something? Really?
Yeah.
It's not pupil?
And it just locks us in and out.
How do you unlock your phone?
Face.
Huh?
With my face.
How do you unlock your phone, will you?
I don't have a lot.
With thumb? Now, phones will take your thumb or a set of numbers for a passcode. It'll take your eyeball too, won't it?
So,
Your eye?
Mine just does my face.
Okay. But now when you sign in to work, Jessica, nobody can sign in for you, can they?
Sometimes it won't let me sign myself in.
Why? Do you not wash your face?
Jesus Christ.
What happened? Too much makeup?
No, sometimes.
Huh?
Sometimes it just doesn't want to let anybody clock in.
What do you do to get around it?
Nothing. Like, you really can't. They just have to write your time on a piece of paper at that point and email it to them. But when I started there, I was 50 pounds heavier. So, as I was losing weight, it stopped letting me clock in because my face was getting skinnier.
Huh. I thought of that either. That was, yeah.
They had to take me out and put me back in.
Anyway, a lot of thumbprints and fingerprints are used for certain things. But here is a timesheet. Stace, what time is it right now? Military time.
It's 11:37.
11:37.
Huh?
11:37.
Military time?
Yeah.
Because it's AM, right? But 12 hours from now, it would be what?
23:37.
Based on 24 hours, right? 24 hours in a day. All right. Some clocks use military time, some don't. I worked at Chrysler one summer, and you had to have your ID on with a picture on it, and you had a security guard sitting there where you clocked in. He was there 24/7. Anyway, when the factory was open. So that was good control, wasn't it? But now Jessica has good control when it has to look at your face. All right, after you see some of these criminal movies, you know, they cut off people's thumbs so they can use their thumbprint and what have you. Okay, actual overhead we know is debited and you credit accounts payable and you credit accumulated depreciation and you credit rents payable, you credit taxes payable. Then you come over here and you apply some kind of rate you calculated and you debit work in process and credit factory overhead. And we know the difference. Now here, I'll make easy numbers. Am I over applied or under applied? All right, I'd be under applied by $100, wouldn't I? All right, now if I reverse that, over applied, under applied by 50. So if you got a credit balance, it's over. If you got a debit balance, it's under. Okay. And we debit finished goods and credit work in process. So what they're trying to tell you about these entries, the same old entries we've always had. Same old entries. They'll work with job order, they'll work with process. Now they're just reviewing the journal entries with you. Purchase materials on account debit A and credit accounts payable. You may have more than one job that you debit work in process and credit materials for. So we debit work in process job 1 and credit materials. We debit work in process job 2 and that's also a credit to materials, and we keep job cost sheets for each job. We debit work in process and credit factory overhead. It's the same thing we've done before, just running you through them again. And as I told you, management will use this to estimate future jobs and give bids and develop budgets and compare actual with your estimated and to do a performance evaluation. So lots of things you use the job order cost system for. And you can have losses, can't you? What kind of product would evaporate? What kind of product would evaporate?
Alcohol.
Alcohol might, but if you got a pint of whiskey, you got lead on it, does it ever evaporate? Milk could possibly evaporate, but gasoline definitely evaporates. It evaporates on the side in the tank. So, you think you got 1,000 gallons of inventory in a gas tank, you may have 800. Leakage, that's anything put in containers underground. What does oxidation mean?
Like rust.
Rust. Rust. We're going to look at defects and spoilage. Now, a defect, can you rework it or sell it at a factory outlet down in the Smoky Mountains? Has anybody ever been to a factory outlet? Have you ever bought a refurbished item? Refurbished. Refurbished just means they reworked it and what have you. But here, you're going to rework it and sell it as a totally new product. Spoilage cannot be reworked, but you got to write it off. Now, where do you think this spoilage would go? Factory overhead. Where do you think this new materials, labor, and overhead would go? Every bit of it. Factory overhead. Every bit of it. Normal loss. Expected. Now, abnormal loss exceeds what is expected. Abnormal spoilage includes cost of abnormal loss, less any disposable value. Now they're putting that in a period cost. We'll look how that works later. When you're making products, there's got to be some loss of materials and of course labor and overhead. Product and material losses, normal loss, abnormal loss, period cost. Standard cost system we won't talk a whole lot about until we have a whole chapter on it. I think in the government, there's been a lot of ethical issues when they've paid $160 for a hammer. How come somebody got the low bid at $160 for a $2 hammer? So the government is really dishonest here when it comes to products and services and bids. And people are dishonest with the government. Oh, that's the government's money. Let's charge them $50,000 for that job, whereas it's really a $20,000 job. People rip off the government too. You think Medicare's ripped off? Medicare is a government-sponsored program. Is it ripped off? Yes. All right. Social Security, that's a federal program. We all pay into it. Do you think people get Social Security dishonest? By having a headache or a backache or getting a psychiatrist to say they're about crazy? And you get a check. Well, according to the polls, the millennials support Bernie Sanders. Now, we discussed this before and somebody looked up those ages. Were you all millennials or post-millennials?
Wow.
Huh?
I think I'm
Consider it.
You're a millennial? And millennials support Bernie Sanders about 70%. Because what is Bernie offering?
Free college.
Free college, free health care. Your student loans will be wiped out. Now, who in here had a student loan? Was that Alexandra?
I did as well.
You have a student loan? Well, now, let's say you graduate next year, Faith, and you've got 10,000 in student loans. But we get a new president, and any new student, they don't have to, their education's free. And you gotta pay back 10,000. You think that's fair?
Yeah.
It's fair?
I think that's all right because I wouldn't want them to go through that same thing.
Okay, so if you look at them, okay. But that's the way you look at things. Each person's different. Everybody has their right. So there is ethical issues in any government program. I think a lot of our politicians running for president, even Trump and Bernie and Biden, they all have ethical issues somewhere in their past. I know Trump's had a whole pocket full of them, whether it's with women or whatever, or his hiring process. But anyway, that's pretty much what this chapter contains, folks. So I'm going to cut it off there. We will have a test a week from today, and we will look at your homework Thursday. We'll look a little bit more at this chapter, and we'll wrap up chapter 3, all right, on Thursday. We'll have a test next. And I'm going to stop recording.